My squids, what it do? Welcome to episode 20 of the PJF podcast. Today, I've just ranted about stuff. I don't even know what I said, but I think I talked about my nose surgery. That was a problem. I think I talked about the best shooters in the NBA, why I think jump shooters are slowly dying out and set shooters is the new rage. We also talked about vertical jump training myths. So I gave you the top 2 myths that aren't always myths. It depends on the context. So if used in the wrong context, this is terrible training advice. When used in the right context, this is good training advice. Now, within all of that, I went on some good rants. I didn't really have much structure to this podcast, but sometimes that ends up being the best ones. So I think you guys will enjoy it. I think hopefully you'll learn something. Be sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And any questions and comments you have, leave them in the YouTube comments. I'm going to be answering some in some future Q&A episodes. Let's get this work. You're listening to the PJF Podcast, a show dedicated to decoding elite sports performance and fitness. I'm Paul Favorites, and I'm an NBA strength and conditioning and performance trainer. If you want to become superhuman, take your fitness, and take your sports performance to the next level, this is the podcast for you. Let's do it. My squids, what it do? It's been a long time. I had to check in with you guys. We're going to do a quick little podcast today. I actually don't really have a direction on where I'm going with it, but I've been out for so long that I got to do one for my Squidwards. Man, a lot has changed since the last time that I talked to my squids. I had nose surgery. A lot of you guys might have seen on TikTok. So I had like polyps throughout my nose. Actually, if you go back, do this. Go back and look at like episode 1 through maybe 4, and you'll hear how stopped up I am. I still kind of am, but it was bad. Like it was getting to the point where we would do podcasts, and like every 10 minutes, I would literally have to stand up and jump because the only thing I could do to clear up my nose was jump up and down to like loosen it up and then blow my nose. It was terrible. And this has been going on for years, but so I eventually I got it checked out. I thought it was just bad allergies. Turns out, like I had polyps all through my nose, polyps all through my sinuses. I had a deviated septum. So I like the perfect storm of bad things going on. And they went in and cleaned it all up. So it was like a 5-hour surgery. But my recovery time took like 4 weeks. So I'm still kind of messed up, but now I can finally breathe again so I can actually talk. That is also why I talked about doing the Fat Don't Fly documentary. That's also why I haven't been able to do that. I haven't been able to train for 4 weeks, so I'm dying inside. Did get some good video content out of it. You might have seen it on TikTok, but as soon as I woke up from my 5-hour surgery, I was out. Like I had no idea where I was. But Ashley asked me who the best shooters in the NBA were, and I had this to say.
All right, CEO. Who's the best shooter in the NBA right now?
Trae Young will be the best shooter of all time in 7 years.
Don't lift your head up.
James is the best shooter right now. He makes tough shots.
He makes tough shots.
He makes tough shots, dude. Step backs, pull up, step back, sidestep, anything. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, obviously accuracy. But they're hurt. They're hurt right now.
Oh no.
So I don't really care, but James and Trae Young and Dame.
That's who we're looking out for?
They're the best tough shot makers in the game right now.
Okay, good job. And we're talking now.
Man, I was out. I don't even remember saying that. Actually, though, now that I go back and I listen to that, I stand by that. I think James Harden is the best shooter in the NBA when you consider how he gets it done, the tough shots, off the dribble. I mean, the difficulty. It's tough to say with shooters. Like, maybe James is just the best scorer all around, and then the best shooter would be like a Klay or probably Steph. But those, like I said in the video, those guys are out. And so right now, James, Trae, Dame. There's some good shooters in the league right now. You notice how everything is moving back, man. When we think about good, when I was growing up, a good shooter was like a Steve Kerr, and then later on like a Ray Allen. But they make 3-point shots, on the line, maybe 1 foot, 2 foot back from the line. And now your top shooters are pulling from the logo, or they're pulling one step in from the logo. And so a lot of coaches look at that and say, oh, you don't need to do that. 3 points is 3 points. So wrong, because what it does to the defense, when you got to guard somebody a step in front of the logo, it stretches everything out. And so now you can get into the lane so much easier. But once you do get into the lane, it's wide open. That is just blue ocean. And so now you got, defenses collapsing. You got kickouts. So like entire offenses can be ran based around that. So we think about like, oh, you got to run a play to get an open shot. Sometimes you just got to have somebody who can shoot from the logo, and then they, people guard them, and now you get into the lane, and now you trigger dominoes with a kick out. So then it's boom, swing, swing, swing. It's not that when people look at that, like someone like James Harden, they think like, oh, ISO ball, that's ISO ball. Yeah, but what happens off that ISO is team ball. He gets in the lane, he kicks, it triggers a domino effect. But yeah, I mean, when you're able to stretch and shoot from deep, it opens everything up. And also, you can get a lot more uncontested shots. So when you're somebody like, actually Trae Young just mentioned this in an interview. He's like, what is Trae, like 6'1" maybe? But he was talking about how he developed that ability to shoot with range from playing up. And so he's playing several years ahead. And so he was always very, very small compared to the competition. And so he couldn't get shots at the 3-point line because he was so undersized. But he figured, hey, if I pull from way outside, then I actually get a clean look. And so then he developed his ability that way. And that's how it is in the NBA. So or at any level. Like the further out you are, the less guarded you're going to be. And so you can be undersized and actually get off shots consistently. The other interesting thing about all of these great shooters, anybody who shoots well with range, is they're all set shooters, right? None of them jump. So Trae Young barely leaves the ground. Steph, James, Dame, anybody with insane range who's consistently like a threat, one step in front of the circle, these guys are all set shooters who barely leave the ground. You get a lot more power that way. When you jump, I mean, essentially what they're doing is they're still using their lower body, and they're it's a full body shot, and they're using power, but they're putting that power into the basketball. They're not putting the power into the jump. So a lot of people actually end up losing power when they jump. Not saying that it's not important to still have a traditional jump shot, because I think in the lane it's important. I think mid-range, a traditional jump shot is still important, especially if you have good positional size. You should have the ability to hit a jump shot. So if you're like a 6'6" point guard, that is your superpower, is that you can get somebody on your hip and elevate over them and shoot. Whereas someone like Trae and Steph, that is not their superpower. And those guys, even when they're in the lane, they're not jumping and elevating over people. They're just like, hey, I'm going to sidestep. I'm going to step back. I'm going to get extra room to get my shot off. And then the other thing is like late games, fourth quarter where your legs are dead. It's really easy to jump 5 inches consistently. It's really hard to jump 30 inches consistently. And then the other thing that people don't think about is your practice reps. So it's a lot easier to get more total reps if you're looking at like, okay, I'm going to make 500 to 1,000 a day. That's very doable energy-wise for the set shooter. For the jump shooter who jumps 30 inches, that's really tough to do that for 500 makes or for 1,000 makes, right? Like, because it's not just the energy that it takes to get through one of those workouts. It's also just the stress on the body of jumping 30 inches and landing 500 or 1,000 times every single day. So it's much easier to get more total quality reps as a set shooter than it is as a jump shooter. Now, there are people that succeed as set shooters all the way, like Steph Curry. You are not going to see Steph Curry, even at 15 feet, elevate over somebody. If he needs extra space, he's going to get into your body and sidestep you, or he's going to find a way just to create more space, like a Trae Young, even James. These guys are not going to jump. Like a Devin Booker is going to be a hybrid, where as a three-point shooter, he's going to be set, but then he gets in the lane, gets around the free throw line, gets around the elbow. He can then elevate above you. So I do think it's good to have both, but it also just depends on your style of game. Like if you have good positional size, I think you absolutely have to have some form of a jump shot, especially like for mid-range or for close to the basket situations. Because when you have good positional size, that's one of your superpowers, is just being able to elevate above people. But if you're a Trae Young or a Steph, you don't have good positional size. And so either way, that's not going to be a superpower for you. And so your superpower is going to be creating space and getting the shot off quick, right? Because that's the other thing, is a set shooter from foot down to release is going to be quicker. It's going to take less total time. Whereas, the guy who jumps as high as he can, yes, he's getting higher, so he has the potential to elevate above the defender, but it also takes longer. So sometimes you're a small guy, and even though you jumped really high, you're being guarded by Ben Simmons, who is your assignment for the night, because now point guards can be 6'9" or 6'10", and he's still going to block your shot. So a lot of times just staying on the ground and getting off quicker is even more important. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see where things go in the next 5 to 10 years. I do think that more and more you're going to just see set shooters. I think eventually the jump shooter from three-point line is going to be dead unless you have really good positional size. But yeah, I mean, I would say if you're a kid who's trying to develop your game, try to develop both. I mean, most importantly, develop that set shot. But mid-range and close to the basket, I think you should have the ability to elevate. All right, so now I want to talk about bad jump training advice. So there's a lot of things that it's a gray area. So sometimes people give the right advice in the wrong context, and so it ends up hurting the athlete. All right, so number one, and I hear this all the time, is dunk every day. I think that's very bad advice for a basketball player. I think that's really good advice for a dunker. So if you're like, hey, all I want to do is just dunk, like I just want to get better at dunking, that's it, then I think you should dunk every day. Now, you should probably start off, if you're on the couch right now, you should probably start off at 2 days a week, and then the next week 3 days a week, and then the next week 4 days a week, and then the next week 5 days a week. And so you add one day to the point where eventually you get to training 7 days a week, or you get to the point where you're dunking 7 days a week. Now, I would start that off low rep, and then I would gradually increase the reps. But I do think that dunking every single day, if you want to be a dunker, is good, because practicing the skill of dunking is way more beneficial for a dunker than any other workout, than strength training, than plyometrics. The number one thing is practicing dunking. Now, the reason why it's bad advice for everybody else outside, you're like, the dunk population is like 0.001% of the hoop community, right? For basketball players, it's terrible advice. And it goes back to what I always say, make sure that the goal remains the goal. So when you're a basketball player, your body takes a beating being on the court, going through practice, playing one-on-one, playing 5-on-5. That alone is going to beat up your body. Now, a skills training session beats up your body. If you're talking about game reps for an hour, that is tough on your body. Then we need strength and conditioning, right? Because that's where we're going to get a lot of durability. We're going to get stronger. We're going to get more physical. That beats up your body. We should do some agility. We still should do some plyometrics. That beats up your body. So then on top of that, if you're saying, okay, I'm also going to go out and dunk every single day, where's the adaptive energy? You don't have it. Your body has X amount of raw materials to go towards recovery, right? You got X amount that goes towards recovery and making an adaptation. And so when we have all of these other stressors on our body, throwing in dunking every single day is just a stressor that is going to push us so far into that overtrained state. We're not going to be able to get out of it. And it's not just adaptive energy. It's also things like your knee health, right? We have X amount of cartilage in our knee, and our cartilage, we are now understanding that it responds well to exercise. And so people used to think like, oh, you get X amount of steps in your life and then your cartilage is worn out. And now it's like, well, hey, if you don't take enough steps and you don't progressively overload in your exercise program, your cartilage is going to degenerate. But then if you take too many steps and you jump too much and you run too much, your cartilage is going to degenerate. And so we have to be somewhere in the middle where we're getting enough but not too much, and we're progressively overloading. But again, if you're dunking every single day, that's not the best thing you can do for your cartilage. Now, if that's all you're doing, then that might be the right amount of stimulus. But when you're on the court for as long as you should be in skills training, dunking every day is just the wrong stimulus for you. It's going to push you overboard. From a knee health standpoint, it's bad. Your lower back is constantly going to be sore when you try to do strength and conditioning, dunking, skills training, and playing. You're not going to have the adaptive energy. And so what's going to end up happening is I go out and I get a 20-minute dunk session. That 20-minute dunk session feels fine now, but because I didn't have enough adaptive energy to recover from that and all the other stuff I got going on, my next skills training suffers. So tomorrow's skills training, I'm not going to be able to go game reps and maintain that quickness and speed and have that energy because my adaptive energy, all of these raw materials are going towards recovering from that previous dunk session. So essentially what I'm trying to say in very simple terms is there are such things as competing demands. And when you don't keep the goal, these other things that you're trying to build end up competing. And so it's like when a basketball player gets obsessed with powerlifting. They're like, okay, now I'm a power lifter. I'm just going to get as strong as possible. That is a competing demand. If you all of a sudden want to become a dunker and that's your thing now, that is a competing demand. A basketball player is a basketball player. And so like in the Vertcode, we build in dunk sessions, but it's like a couple days a week, right? I don't think there's any phase where we go more than 3 days a week. So now the problem is skills coaches and sports coaches, they don't quantify things. Very rarely do they quantify things. Strength coaches are good at quantifying things because we're all about sets and reps. And so the ground context that you get in your plyometric session with the strength coach, we know how many ground contacts you're getting per day, per week, and how that meets the needs within your training year. But then on the court, the skills trainers are typically just like, it's a free-for-all. Like one session, they may get no intense jumps, no dunks. And then the next session, they might have 300, intense jumps and hundreds of dunks. So that is a problem because then you can't progressively overload. So then you end up beating the athlete down because you went 0 dunks, 100 dunks, 0 dunks, 300 dunks. That is a recipe for disaster. So what I want from skills coaches and sports coaches is to start quantifying things and just saying like, hey, we're going to have our high intensity days. That's more dunks. We're going to have our low intensity days and then our moderate intensity days. And maybe like on your high intensity, they can get 20 dunks. In your low intensity days, they're probably getting no dunks or just a few dunks. And then on your moderate intensity, maybe you're doing 10 dunks. So if you structure that program the right way, they can get enough dunk reps to get better at the skill of dunking, but not enough to become a competing demand for their overall game. So in the Vertcode, we'll have dunk sessions, but keep in mind when we're doing more dunk sessions, we'll do less of other things. We're not just going to add on dunk sessions to what we're already doing. And I don't think there's any phase where we actually go above 3 dunk sessions. So normally it's like 2 dunk sessions per week. And I think that's pretty good for a basketball player who's trying to get better at basketball, right? Because you might say, well, Paul, if practicing dunking is the best way to get better at dunking and you're all about athleticism, then why not do less strength and conditioning and less plyometrics and just practice dunking? Well, if you're a dunker, that's the way to go. If I was a dunker, I would actually take away a little bit of plyometrics and I would do much more just practicing dunking. The problem is practicing dunking gets you better at dunking, but it doesn't get you better at other things, right? So like a lot of what you're doing when you're practicing dunking is you're just improving your mechanics, which is important for dunking, right? But that doesn't lead to better quickness off the ground in a standing vertical jump to get up and block somebody, or jumping off an outside leg, hitting and extending, right? That dunking over and over again does not improve those traits. Now your plyometric training might. We're doing single leg plyometrics. We're doing plyometrics multidimensionally. We're doing agility multidimensionally. So these are the plyometrics, and the proper agility training are going to lead to better overall jumping ability in basketball. It's going to lead to better overall quickness, first step explosiveness. So all of these things that really matter for basketball can be improved with a really good plyometric and a really good agility program and traditional strength program. But the strength program is more so for injury prevention. But dunking is not going to prevent injuries. Dunking is not going to improve first step explosiveness, deceleration, change of direction. It's not going to improve any of these things. It's just going to improve your ability to dunk. And I have a secret for you guys. Dunking is not going to make you that much better at basketball. All right? I hate to be the one to break to you, and I had to find this out the hard way. Now, when I improved my vertical into the mid-40s, I was windmill dunks. I could rattle in between the legs. I could do 360 dunks. But when I went and played with high-level players, centers who are 6'10" with bounce, I wasn't dunking on them. It was a shell shock for me because I thought like, wow, my athleticism is so good that I'm going to be able to just get in the lane and just jump all the time. It doesn't really work like that. Now, my athleticism significantly transformed my game because now I can get up and extend against the bigs and hit layups and hang in the air for longer to do, reverse layups. And it transformed my game, but it's because of the lateral speed, the linear speed, the hang time. It wasn't because of dunking. And so when all you do is you go out and do these dunk practice sessions, you don't get better at these other things. You just get better at dunking. So that is why I don't want you guys to fall into this trap of going out and dunking every single day, unless you say, Paul, look, I'm not trying to get better at basketball. That's not my thing. Or you're like, hey, basketball is just this side priority. What I want to do is I just want to be a dunker, right? I want to just make dunk videos, or I want to go compete and become a professional dunker. Well, then, hey, that advice completely changes. Because now it's like, let's do some strength training to stay durable and to keep your knees healthy, and let's just go dunk. I think a lot of basketball players, I think a lot of athletes ruin careers by picking up other things that are not the actual goal. The goal has to remain the goal, and if you're a basketball player, the goal is getting better at basketball. Dunking is a side goal, right? Powerlifting, maybe you're into that. That's a side goal. It's minimum effective dose. So how can I get better at dunking with the least amount of reps? How can I get as strong as possible with the least amount of time spent under a bar? All right, the next piece of bad advice that could also be good advice with jump training is go hard. It's all about hard work. The better way to do it for jump training is stimulate, not annihilate. So the problem with annihilating yourself when it comes to vertical jump and speed and quickness and all around athleticism, really. When you annihilate yourself, you're training the wrong energy systems. You're training the wrong muscle fiber types, right? We want to be training these type 2X and these type 2A, and we're training more slow twitch when we get more into that super fatiguing type of work. Not to say you can't still train the fast twitch when fatigued. Of course, you are still going to activate fast twitch, but you're also going to maximally activate slow twitch. And so if your goal is quickness and speed and vertical, that might be going in the wrong direction. Adaptive energy, it takes a lot more energy to recover from these type of workouts where you beat yourself down. Whereas if you go in and you stimulate and you do just enough where you feel like you train, but afterwards you go out, you still feel bouncy, you still feel good. That workout, you might be able to recover from that in 24 or 48 hours. Whereas when you go in and you annihilate yourself, and I know it feels good, but that workout might take 72 hours to recover from. And so you might only be able to get 2 of those sessions per week, whereas the workout that we stimulated but didn't annihilate, we might be able to fit in 4 lower body workouts. And so the total amount per week that we got out of our lower body was more when we stimulated and not annihilated. Now, that advice of go hard could also be good in certain situations. For example, there's certain days where I do want you to feel annihilated, like conditioning days. We want to go hard. I want to feel just as tired or more tired than I would feel in a game. And so to get to that level, you're going to have to push yourself really, really hard. So like conditioning, we don't just want stimulating. Like stimulating could be like a little 7-minute jog, but that's not enough to actually prepare you for the endurance demands in a game if you're a high-minute guy. So like conditioning days, that's where you would want to annihilate yourself. Sometimes hypertrophy days. Now, most people can get good hypertrophy gains just by stimulating, but like you're going to reach a certain point where if your training age is high, you're going to have to go pretty hard. And there's probably going to be days where like if you want to get your quads and your glutes bigger, you're probably going to be somewhat limping out of the gym, or at least you're not going to feel completely fresh leaving the gym. In vertical jump training, in speed training, I want you to leave feeling pretty fresh. Like you should have a bounce to your step. Hypertrophy training, I'm trying to get my muscles bigger. You probably shouldn't leave the gym with that bounce to your step. You shouldn't leave completely annihilated, but you should be kind of right in the middle where it's like, I don't want to go try to dunk right now. I don't want to go show off my athleticism, but I also can walk and I can sit on my toilet. I'm not that sore. That's kind of where you want to be for hypertrophy. Now, this is also why I think it's so important for you to learn your body and listen to your body, because like people on the Vertcode Elite, one person who's actually elite and ready for that program, let's say they're in phase 2 where the workouts are pretty long. And, they hit me and they're like, yo, man, that was good. It was long. It was an hour 15. And that's because they've worked to that point. They're elite. And so they have a high training age. Whereas if you don't have a high training age and you hop in and you're on phase 2, that workout can make you pretty tired. Even phase 1, even though that's a build the base, that workout could make you pretty tired if you haven't built to that level. And so that's why it's important, because if that workout makes you tired and you leave the gym limping and like, yo, my legs, I've never felt this before, that workout's too hard for you. That workout's probably too high a volume for you. Whereas for somebody else, it's the perfect amount. And so that's why I try to teach people on the Vertcode Elite to listen to your body and to know who you are and be self-aware, right? Be a squid. Be self-aware, because if you're that person who is not actually ready for that, 1, you shouldn't be on that program. You should probably be on the body weight. But 2, if you are on that program, you should be listening to the minimum dose advice, right? First video on every day, we give minimum dose advice. And that's like, how do I still get gains from this without having to do everything? I'm just going to do the bare minimum to still get good results. So for you, that might be better. And then you monitor, like, how did I feel after this session? Did I feel completely beat down? And did I feel like I can't walk? Well, then you should cut back even more. And so like if you go in the gym with your friend, you might not be able to handle the same amount as them, or they might not be able to handle the same amount as you. And that's why with the Vertcode and the Vertcode Elite, like we want to teach you how to individualize it for yourself. Because at the end of the day, a good training program is a blueprint, but if you follow it precisely without listening to your body and fitting it to you, you're not going to be able to get maximum results from that. So I think that's just a classic example of something that, like, push hard, annihilate yourself in the gym, no pain, no gain. That could be good advice for certain days, like conditioning, mental training. I got to get people to push through some stuff to make them tough mentally, because that's even more important than physical. And so certain days, that's really good advice. But then when you apply that advice to vertical jump training, quickness, speed training, that becomes very bad advice. And you'll probably end up actually losing vertical if you go in and annihilate yourself and push as hard as you can all the time. All right, my squids, thanks for listening in to episode 20. If you're ready to hop on the Vertcode, go check it out, pjfperformance.net. I know a lot of you guys are already on it. If you're already on it, keep working, stay at it, stay consistent. It's all about consistency. It is not about going hard for 2 months and then taking a month off and then hopping back on. That is the worst way to go about improving your long-term athleticism. It's all about consistency. I would rather see you do a little bit of it every single day than to do all of it for weeks at a time and then drop off. Right? So make sure that you guys are staying on it. You're keeping at it. We have Edge U releasing very soon. So that is our platform for trainers, coaches, future trainers. We are going to be able to get you guys to the next level, get you all the resources that you need to take your knowledge to the next level, not only on the strength and conditioning side, but also on the business side as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that. We're going to be announcing the date very soon. I'm out.